And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Hello, I'm David Kramer with Alaska Weather. Thanks for joining for the aviation segment. Starting off, taking a look at our flying weather on Thursday morning. Out over the Bering Sea and Aleutian Islands, we have widespread MVFR conditions with our front moving through the Bering. Out over the state, mostly MVFR, but there are some pockets of IFR out by the Alaska Range and up in the eastern interior, and then IFR conditions all along the North Slope. Down in the Gulf of Alaska, widespread MVFR conditions, and as we move into the Panhandle and along the coastal mountains of the North Gulf Coast, IFR conditions are expected as well. Moving into Thursday afternoon, going to clear up quite a bit down in southeast. We'll have some MVFR conditions down in the southern portions with VFR up farther to the north. Out over south central Alaska and much of the mainland, we are expecting primarily MVFR conditions with just some pockets of IFR remaining. Up along the Brooks Range and into the Arctic coast, IFR conditions are expected. And out over the Bering Sea and Aleutian Islands, widespread MVFR conditions. Moving into Friday morning, starting to clear out a lot by the Aleutian Islands, VFR conditions Friday morning, but MVFR as we get up by the Pribilof Islands and farther to the north. Out over the states, still seeing quite a bit of MVFR with some areas of IFR up by the Seward Peninsula, down in the Alaska Range, and out over the eastern interior. Up along the Arctic coastline, IFR conditions are expected. And down in the Panhandle, still staying pretty clear down there, as well as out over the Gulf of Alaska with VFR conditions expected. Friday afternoon, starting to see some MVFR conditions creep back into the coastal mountain ranges, and then along the North Gulf Coast as well, throughout south central and pretty much all of mainland Alaska, with once again some areas of IFR through some of the mountain ranges. Out over the Bering Sea, we are seeing quite a bit of MVFR conditions, but still hanging on to some VFR conditions for the Aleutian Islands. Taking a look now at our passes, starting up north at Anaktuvik, expected to be IFR all day on Thursday. Adigan Pass will start off IFR, but then improve to marginal conditions in the afternoon. Lake Clark and Merrill will both be IFR throughout the day. However, on the east side, we do expect some VFR conditions. Rainy Pass also going to be IFR throughout the day, but once again on the east side of the range, we are going to see some VFR conditions. Windy Pass going to start off marginal, drop down to IFR in the afternoon. Isabel Pass also starting off marginal, dropping down to IFR. Mentasta looking to be MVFR throughout the day on Thursday. Tanita Pass will start off VFR, drop down to marginal, except on the west side where we do expect it to be marginal all day. Portage will start off IFR, improve to marginal in the afternoon, and Chilkoot and White will both start off IFR and improve to marginal in the afternoon as well. Taking a look now at our freezing levels, 2,000 foot freezing level is going to cover much of the southern portion of the state, including the Panhandle area. A little bit of warmer air farther to the south there, getting up to about 4,000 feet in the southern portions of the Panhandle. And then some warmer air coming in by the Aleutians as well, 4,000 feet for the central and western Aleutian Islands. Taking a look now at our icing. Out over the Bering Sea, we have between 2,000 and 8,000 feet. Then out over mainland Alaska, in the southern portions of the state, above 4,000 feet for icing is expected. As we get into the interior and western portions of the state, above 3,000 feet. And then out by the Panhandle area, above 5,000 feet is expected. For our jet stream, main portion of the jet is staying off to the south, just some weaker flow out of a jet streak out over the Panhandle area. And then as we move out over the Bering Sea and Aleutians, strongest portion of the jet is out by the western Aleutians at 105 knots out of a northerly direction. Taking us down to 9,000 feet, circulating around our low out over the Bering Sea, we have a lot of stronger winds coming into the Aleutian Islands, up to 50 knots out of a northwest direction for the central Aleutian Islands, dropping down to near 30 knots as we get to the Alaska Peninsula, and then fairly weaker winds out over much of mainland Alaska and down through much of the Panhandle. Down to 3,000 feet, still fairly calm for much of the Panhandle area. Southern portion is going to start to see winds getting up to around 20 knots out of an easterly direction. Most of the mainland still fairly light as well, with winds picking up as we get closer towards the west coast with some northerly flow up north through the Bering Strait, around 20 knots there, but becoming west to southerly winds as we get closer towards the southwest coastline, still only around 25 to 30 knots. Out over the Aleutian Islands, we can see winds up to 35 knots out of a west to northwest direction. Taking us to our turbulence, where we saw the stronger winds, we'll also see some turbulence throughout the Aleutian Islands and getting close towards Kodiak Island as well, below 3,000 feet for much of the Aleutians, below 4,000 feet as we get closer towards Kodiak and the Alaska Peninsula, and then below 6,000 feet for areas in the southern portions of the Panhandle. With Alaska Weather, I'm David Kramer. Thanks for watching.